ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I'm your host, Chris Crenshaw, and we are live from the 336. Once again for episode 173 of the 815 Exchange. And listen, this is the football episode, alright? So if you're here to hear me talk about football, this is the episode for you, alright? Because we got college football, we got Rivalry Week, the last week of the regular season in college football. We have that to talk about. We have week 12 in the NFL, which came with its own just kind of extraordinary circumstances and different storylines that kind of came out of it. Of course, last week we had the quarterback massacre, so now we have the effects of that, and of course the Bills and Eagles game and all the storylines that came from that. So yeah. Monday, so for those online shoppers, today is your day. But as always, remember to like, share, and subscribe if you guys are enjoying the content. And as always, timestamps are embedded in the video and are also in the description with everything you're looking for, as well as my social media links if you want to follow me there. But like I said, ladies and gentlemen, we got a lot of football to talk about, so you know we gonna start it off with CFB. And with doing that, we have to talk about one team that has been one of the most interesting cases. It is the ultimate science experiment in college football. It is Iowa. That is the only way to describe it. It is the great Iowa science experiment by Kirk Ferentz and Co. Because there's this, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. The lowest under ever for, I think, a sixth game this season for this Iowa Hawkeye team. Going against the not so mighty anymore, Nebraska Cornhuskers. 25 points was the over-under for this game. They had 17 points at halftime, and I was like, oh my. It might happen. Iowa might not hit the under. I know the bettors out there, are sweating right now. But no, ladies and gentlemen, this is Iowa, okay? This is Iowa. For some people, this is the worst football imaginable, okay? This is a team with a great defense and absolutely no semblance of an offense. It is the inverse of USC and currently, I guess, LSU as well, all right? I mean, it's one of the worst offenses in America, with one of the best defenses. It is psychopathic football. Horrific football for neutrals. But for those of us that have been tried and tested, have been through the loop, have followed Iowa every step of the way this year, I love it. I love it. So that second half where it was a punt-off, shout out to Troy Taylor, future NFL punter. And they were just going back and forth with punts. It was thrilling. And when Iowa had to march down that field to get that game-winning field goal with a backup, not the starting kicker because he missed 2 field goals because, come on, we got to hit that under. A backup kicker, I felt something. For the last game in that iconic Big Ten West, I hate conference alignment, we had to end it only one way with a backup kicker taking his first field goal attempt, I believe, of the season. Marshall Metter hits a 38-yarder to send Iowa into the Big Ten Championship, and they have done it. The worst, greatest football team of all time has made it. They have done it. Somehow, someway, Iowa. The great science experiment continues. I mean, surely, no way. Of course, we're going to talk about who they're going to play in 2 games, for those wondering, if we're going to talk about the game. We're going to see. All right, we're going to see if they can somehow pull this off. This game was a great OD to the Big Ten West, all right? And the absolute sicko football that has been played in that division, especially this year, but just overall, all right? So hats off to everybody in the Big Ten West. What an iconic way to go out. Marshall Metter, like I said, the backup kicker, shows up, first kick, all right? 38-yarder, game winner, iconic. hit the under again. Another record under again for Iowa. Shout out to LaShawn Williams, though, even though I talk about how horrible the offense is for both of these teams, really. But LaShawn Williams had 111 yards rushing. He was toting that thing. Ethan Hurkett as well had 9 tackles, 1.5 sacks, and a big interception for Iowa as well. No Coop still, but still, that Iowa defense is legit, as they've been pretty much for all of France's existence as their head coach. And yeah, Iowa wins the Big Ten West in iconic fashion, and they hit the under again, and it's just absolute sicko. Sicko's game of the year, honestly. All right, Iowa-Nebraska, sicko's game of the year, as expected. Masochist football, but I absolutely love it. Let's talk about the Civil War. I'm not talking about the one from way long ago. I'm talking about, of course, the final edition of the Civil War for a while, because conference alignment is stupid, but we're not going to do that today. Oregon and Oregon State. All right, listen. Bo Nix needs to be going to New York. I'm still not not that he wouldn't be worthy, but I just think Jaden Daniels is the Heisman. All right, with what JD has done on a little bit worse of a team, I feel like he's been the best. Okay? But I have to give credit where credit's due. All right, Bo went 33 for 40 in this game against a very, I won't say very good, but a good Oregon State team. All right, this Oregon State team is good. Despite what's happened when they play elite opponents, they are still a good team. Bo goes 33 for 40, as I said. 398 yards total, 3 touchdowns total. Tez Johnson had a game. I know normally we talk about Troy, and we're about to talk about Troy, but Tez, I got to give a shout out to. 11 receptions, 137. Oregon State had nothing they could do with that man. Troy Franklin was the easiest breakout, I mean, I said at the beginning of the year, but that was the easiest breakout candidate for, this guy's going to become an elite receiver in the country. Easiest pick of the year. Okay, Franklin, 9 receptions, 128 and a touchdown. I don't know what the overall statistics. I know a lot of that ends up being weighed heavily in Biletnikoff, but I think Franklin is worthy of being in that talk, or at least being, a finalist, maybe a semifinalist if he isn't already. But yeah, Franklin continues to ball out. DJ was not him. All right, Big Cinco, or whatever we're calling him at this point. DJ is not him. We said this last week. We've been saying this for a while, but yeah, DJ, he just never lived up to that hype. Never lived up to what he wanted to be. I know a lot of us thought it was Clemson, and maybe his growth got stunted by what happened at Clemson. But yeah, he never became that star, that superstar quarterback that his recruiting rating and what we saw at Bosco. He never became that. And unfortunately for Oregon State, that was a big difference. All right, Bo, he's become a superstar. DJ never became that guy, and that was a big difference in this game. But yeah, Bo, I guess we should expect it. This is his 5th year as a starting quarterback, but nonetheless, dude is balled out. Send him to New York. Let's talk about it, all right? The game. The biggest game of the week, all right, which is why it is called the game. And it's really, lately, it's been the game of the college football season, or if not one of the games, every single year, all right? Especially since Michigan has become, a real threat to Ohio State. It's become even more intriguing, and here we are once again. This is basically, like they were saying in the broadcast, a glorified playoff game. All right, this is win, and you get to play Iowa in the Big Ten Championship with a chance to, send yourself to the playoff, lose, and it's over. It is over. It is win or go home for Ohio State and Michigan. All right, so much NFL talent on this field. It was similar to the LSU Alabama games of old. It was insane. And it ended up being a very insane game. All right, this was a tremendous game. But for the 3rd straight year, ladies and gentlemen, a 3rd straight year for the hat trick. No Jim Harbaugh. Doesn't matter. Shamar Moore is now 4-0 as a Michigan head coach. And in the last 3 years, Michigan is now 3-0 against Ohio State. And Ryan Day is now 1-3 against Michigan, which raised a lot of eyebrows. But let's talk about the game, yeah? Kyle McCord, I've had a lot of Nostradamus, Ostradamus, whatever you want to call me. We've had a lot of those moments lately. Here's another one. Kyle McCord, listen. When he didn't show that he was the guy in preseason football or earlier in the season, I was like, yeah, McCord is just, when we didn't hear, CJ came in, we heard those rumblings, right? Fields, we know what Fields was because he was the number 2 recruit in the country, right? We heard those rumblings before, right? That, okay, this could be one of the ones. We didn't hear about that about McCord. We heard, I don't know if he's going to beat out Devin Brown. And when we saw Devin Brown, we were like, what's going on here? And here it comes roaring back. Because Kyle McCord is not that guy. Simply put, he throws a pick at the end of the game. Of course, he threw 2 great throws. I have to give credit where credit's due now. Made some great throws on that drive, but that last one under pressure maybe forced it a little bit. I don't think it was 4th down. So, I mean, maybe you just, take the L in that one, even though it would have been a sack, or just throw it away or something. But doesn't make a throw, just missed once. And that's all it takes sometimes. Missed once, Michigan picks it off, and that ends the game. Marvin Harrison Jr. will go his entire career at Ohio State and never beat Michigan, which is crazy. Blake Corum was finally healthy for a game, and yeah, it was big for Michigan. 88 yards and 2 touchdowns for the Michigan Wolverine legend. Will Johnson went back and forth with Marvin before he got injured. That was a great matchup between cornerback 1 probably next year, and of course wide receiver 1 this year. 2 special talents that will probably be matching up if they're not on the same team in the NFL very, very, very soon. But yeah, a very good matchup. Will, of course, got that early interception, but Marvin is Marvin, so he battled back to that 5-reception, 118 and a touchdown performance. And of course, that one instance where Will literally tackled him and he still caught the ball because he's Marvin Harrison Jr. and he is a mutant. Maserati Marv, Ashton Marvin, whatever you want to call him, the mother is a monster. Okay, he's an absolute monster, an animal. Jack Sawyer also had a great game for Ohio State, 6 tackles and a sack. Who else? Yeah, McCord, 271, 2 touchdowns but 2 interceptions, and those 2 interceptions being oh so costly for Ohio State. And yeah, it almost in reach. Couldn't finish the job. In Michigan, I think it's a testament to the program that they've built and the patience, right? And that's something that Ohio State is going through right now. With now people are calling like Maurice Claret, and there's a section of the Ohio State fan base, which is crazy, right? He's 56-7. You lose maybe 2 games a year, sometimes just 1 game a year, and it's fire him. Go ahead. Let me be a witness. Let Texas be a witness. Let Nebraska, like we talked about earlier, be a witness to what happens when you fire a coach who still is, losing maybe at most 3 games a season. You're printing out 10-win seasons at minimum. Let us be a witness to you getting rid of that and see how far you can fall from the upper echelon of college football. Now, he needs to beat Michigan. He needs to win conference championships. You need to be in the playoff, yada, 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 yada. But listen, my advice, don't make a rash decision and screw yourself for a longer period of time. All right? You got to roll with the punches, and I think this is just kind of one of those times where Michigan just has Ohio State's number. They have it right now. It will flip over. If you stay the course, keep bringing in the talent you are, eventually it will pull the course. Michigan didn't get rid of Harbaugh when he couldn't beat Ohio State. And now look at them. National championship contenders. I don't think they should get rid of Day in the current moment. I just don't think that's the right decision. Also got to give a shout out, of course, to the QB1 from Michigan, J.J. McCarthy. Made some, first off, that throw, which maybe it was a fumble in the end zone on Roman Wilson or whatever, insane. All right, that was one of the best throws I've seen of the season, and he was clutch, very efficient. They don't ask him to do too much, but you can see the talent shine through with JJ, and yeah. Even though he's probably not going to have, like, the statistical numbers, I think he goes down as probably a very iconic, figure, especially for Michigan quarterbacks with everything he's done for that program and how he's carried that weight of being that guy, of being the face of the franchise. So, yeah, credit where credit's due. Michigan, they go to the Big Ten Championship. Ohio State, enjoy your New Year's Six Bowl. Kentucky. Of course, Louisville. Of course. The lights got too bright. They got too bright for the Cardinals, and of course they took a fat L to their chieftain rivals of Kentucky, 38-31. Ray Davis is him. All right? He was due. He was due for another monster game. It happened. Yeah. 37-yarder to basically go ahead and win the game with 1 minute and 2 seconds to go. They went back and forth in that last 3 minutes. But, yeah, Davis kind of put it to bed. He ends up with 127 yards total, 76 yards rushing and a touchdown there. He also had 4 receptions, 51 yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns. So, yeah, just a complete performance from the tailback, Ray Davis, edging himself into Kentucky lore. Devin Leary actually looked competent for the first time in about 3 years. 206 yards, 3 touchdowns, and interception, but still 3 touchdowns for Leary. Solid game from him. Jack Plummer wasn't awful, but he was Jack Plummer. He's nothing remarkable. 242, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Jawar Jordan had 2 touchdowns. Ben Perry had 9 tackles, 2.5 TFLs, but it wasn't enough. It was not enough. And the grass is blue. Kentucky gets the win 38-31. They take out Louisville right ahead of the ACC championship. Bama. All right. Bama versus Auburn. Big time matchup. As always, the Iron Bowl audiered Auburn. And this was one of the greatest bag fumbles of the year. And one of the greatest bag fumbles certainly in Iron Bowl history. An all-timer. Auburn should have, for all intents and purposes, won this game. Should have won this game. Honestly, it's remarkable that they did win this game. This is almost as egregious as when Miami did not just kneel the ball down and then fumbled and gave the game away to Georgia Tech. Yeah, this was almost that bad, to be completely honest with you. On fourth down, Jalen Milroe gets, the same time it's going to take me to finish this podcast. That's how much time Jalen Milroe had in the pocket. Two-Face just sat back and flipped the coin. Flipped it and flipped it and flipped it until it landed on heads. And then he threw a dime to somehow, maybe by the grace of God, maybe he's an Alabama fan, because Isaiah Bond had no business being open. But you know what? Single coverage. Bond was open in the end zone on, once again, fourth down. They connect on a 31-yarder to win the game. Auburn. Are you serious? You had one thing to do, not let them get a touchdown on fourth down from 30 yards out, and you couldn't do that. They didn't even really run a good play. They didn't even go. Just absolutely embarrassment. All right, an absolute embarrassment. Milroe was feeling himself, though. I got to say, afterwards, had a little bit too much dip on your chip. My brother in Christ, what makes you think you deserve to be hyped? I get it. Hyped up, feeling himself, played a good game. Why should you even be mentioned in Heisman conversations? I'm sorry. If you get benched during the season, I don't care how good you play, unless you're dropping 5 touchdowns, 10 touchdowns a game. Afterwards, if you get benched for play, not because of injury, but for play during the season, you are not the Heisman. Now, next year, I think Jalen Milroe should be one of the favorites. With the development we've seen, which has been stratospheric, he should be one of the favorites. Now, but this year, a little bit too much dip on your chip, but I can let it pass because you had an iconic moment. 366 and 2 touchdowns for Two-Face. Jermaine Burton had 4 receptions, 107 and a touchdown because he has really stepped up and been that guy. I think that's been kind of essential for Milroe's development as well. Has been Burton easing into that role as the number 1 receiver for Bama, which is what I think they were missing, right? This receiving corps is not what it's been, but Burton has stepped up as one of those guys, and I think that's been big for Milroe's development as well. And really for that offense and this Bama team really turning around. So credit where credit's due to Burton. 4 sacks as a team. They had constant pressure on Peyton Thorne all night. It was the usual suspects, Dallas Turner, Lawson, Braswell, so on and so forth. We talk about this front 7 for Alabama every single week. You don't need to hear me say it. You know exactly who did what. You got it, all right? Once again, I'm here another week telling you that Terrion Arnold is the best, all right? Terrion Arnold is the best cornerback on this Alabama team, and it's not really close. 2 interceptions for Arnold in this game. He needs to be in Thorpe talks if he's not already. That's just my opinion. Crazy thing is he might not be the best DB on this team because Caleb Downs is generational. What else? Oh, yeah. Peyton Thorne went 5 for 16, 91 yards, a touchdown and a pick, and Auburn should have won this game. That is how much of a bag fumble. Your quarterback played at an elementary level, and you still should have won an all-time choke in the Iron Bowl. All right. Oklahoma State, BYU. Not the game you would have thought game of the week, but here we are. Here we are. All right, game of the week contender. Some of y'all might call it a game of the week, but of course, there was a lot of great games this week. It was rivalry week, so. Oklahoma State and BYU goes to double overtime, and Ollie Gordon is a Heisman contender. All right, he should win the Heisman, but send him to New York. All right, he should win the Doak Walker though, certainly. And after this game, I don't know if anybody's going to debate it. Iconic moment for him, just kind of somehow somersaulting through the pile there, just jumping up, getting battered around, but still finding the end zone. He found the end zone 5 times. All right, Ollie Gordon scored 5 times. The only other man to do that in an Oklahoma State uniform at running back is Barry Sanders. It's pretty elite conversation. Pretty elite conversation to be in. 166 yards and 5 touchdowns for Ollie. Like I said, this was a great game. 40-34. Leon Johnson the third had 9 receptions, 132. Nick Martin had 8 tackles and 1.5 sacks. AJ Vong. I don't want to butcher his name. I believe it is Ty. But I don't want to butcher his name. So I'm going to say AJ Vong. He's the tremendous linebacker, captain linebacker for BYU. He had 15 tackles. He was tackling everything with the pulse. Every time I looked up to see who was making the tackle for BYU, it was AJ. Okay? He absolute monster game, gave everything, left everything on the field. I had to give credit where credit's due there. Eddie Heckard toughed it out. All right? 2 interceptions in this game. One of them was a pick 6. Very tough game for him. And yeah. Impressive performances all around. But Oklahoma State, man, they had enough to do it, stuck with it, and yeah, just tremendous performance. They get it done. Ollie Gordon is him. Washington and Washington State. All right, the Apple Cup. And honestly, Washington may have got away with one here with some interesting calls. Gross hits the 42-yarder. Penix can't look at it, but he does hit the 42-yarder to win the game and win the last ever Apple Cup because of once again, conference realignment sucks. So Washington survives Wazoo, which is the best thing I can say about this. Michael Penix was not good in this game. Okay, and honestly, I feel like we've said this the past couple weeks, where I've been like, yo, Penix wasn't that guy this week. Once again, he was not this guy this week. I don't know what happened or what's been going on, or maybe it's just like a slump that Penix is in for the past 2 weeks, but next week against Oregon in the rematch, he got to get back to it. Because this is not winning. This is not sustainable. All right, this is not sustainable. The way he's playing and the decisions he's making and just like everything, it's not sustainable at all for Washington to continue to win the way that they want to continue to win. So he's got to tighten it up ahead of this Oregon game. But yeah, another rough game, honestly, for Penix, if I'm being completely honest with you. And another game of Rome Odunze carrying Washington offensively, 7 receptions, 120, and 2 touchdowns. Sent him to the Biletnikoff Awards or the College Football Awards because he might be walking away with some hardware because my oh my, has he been one of the best receivers. I mean, we got a lot of great receivers this year, man. A lot of great receivers. Besides even us talking about how generational Marv is, we got a lot of great receivers. And Rome is definitely one of them. Tremendous game for him. Like I said, carried the load offensively once again for Washington. 5 sacks. All right, they had 5 sacks of Cam Ward. Tremendous game from that front 7 in Washington, getting pressure and that defense really being able to impose their will. Ward had a much better game, all right? It's been a while since we had Ward, have one of those games. Had a much better game this week. Still had 2 turnovers, though, with that 2 interceptions. But he did have 317 and 3 touchdowns at the end of the day, so a solid game there. Josh Kelly had 8 receptions, 106 and a touchdown. Victor had 11 receptions, 88 yards and a touchdown. But Washington, like I said, got a little bit of a favor call in that last drive. Got in field goal range, and they were able to get the job done. And hey, they advanced. They get a chance at the playoff. Got to beat Oregon again, though. Iowa State. Because once again, Kansas State was streaking, and of course, that just cannot continue. So Iowa State upsets Kansas State 42-35 in what was another tremendous game. Becht had an all-time game. All right, there was a couple of guys for Iowa State, that had all-time games. Becht was one of them. 8 for 12, 230, and 3 touchdowns is an absurd stat line for a quarterback. Abu Sama having 376 and 3 touchdowns is another absurd stat line for a running back. Jalen Noel, 3 receptions, 160, and 2 touchdowns is an absurd stat line for a wide receiver, but it was just that type of game. Bo Frailer as well had 15 tackles for Iowa State. It was a glorious, glorious game for the Cyclones. All right, just an absolutely glorious game for them. Everything that could go right pretty much went right in this game, and they were able to knock down Kansas State. This was also a snow game, which was pretty dope as well. Will Howard goes 334, 2 touchdowns, and 1 pick. Wasn't his finest game, and maybe clean that up a little bit more, you win the game. But it is what it is. DJ Giddens had 114 and a touchdown. Ben Sinnott had 10 receptions, 136 and a touchdown, but it wasn't enough. Kansas State loses the snow game at home as well to the Cyclones, and Iowa State gets a huge win. And to round up this college football segment, Carolina lost. Lol. Ha 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 ha. Listen, all my enemies lost, by the way. I don't have a college basketball segment, but Carolina lost on Thanksgiving, and the Commanders, which we'll talk about in the NFL segment, all lost. It was great. All right, if you follow me on social media, you saw I was celebrating on Thanksgiving. So, just a great time for me, and of course, State. Shout out to them. And shout out to the 336 legend and my former high school teammate, Devin Boykin, for getting it done and getting the game-sealing interception on Drake May, who, by the way, we need to have a very serious conversation about how he's been playing recently. But yeah, State hands Carolina another L, and Georgia barely survives Georgia Tech. That game got way too close at the end, but Georgia gets the win anyway. Credit where credit's due to Brent Key, though, and what he's done with Georgia Tech. That program is definitely on the up, but UGA remains the number one team in the land. Not combat sports this week, just boxing. Because we had some interesting stuff this week, yeah. Basically, we had a Who Wants to Fight Canelo next off on the same card as well. David Benavidez, though, we've been saying he's a monster. We've been saying he's a problem since he came back. And Boo Boo Andrade finally got to face another one of the elite, another title holder, and boy, did that not go well for him. Benavidez beat the brakes off of that boy. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. All right, it was a monstrous performance for the Mexican monster, and David Benavidez surely looks like he's ready for Canelo because he put a beating on Boo Boo. I mean, put a beating on Andrade. Woo. It was like Crawford Spence, except that Spence's corner, and in this case Andrade's corner, said after the 6th round, for your health, we're going to shut this down. All right, Andrade giving his first L. Benavidez is a monster. He's who I think Canelo. All right, I want to see David versus Canelo. That's who I think he should face next. But of course, we'll see. Another man calling for that matchup, of course, is the person whose brother just faced Canelo and got beat up. And that was Jermall Charlo. All right, he made his return to the ring after 2.5 years off against David Benavidez's brother. Yes, Jose Benavidez Jr. A war. All right, a war. A very, very good match. The Charlos usually have some good, very, very good entertaining value. You don't really ever see a boring Charlo fight. I'm going to be completely honest. And Jermall excited here. Big Charlo. He came through. Beat up on Benavidez, but Benavidez, he was striking back and forth. All right, they were going back and forth with it. I think it was the right unanimous decision. I don't think it was really disputable who won that fight. I'm with everybody else on that. Charlo pretty much dominated, but it was a very competitive fight. A nice, back and forth. Respect to both fighters. But yeah, Jermall, in a way, has also earned himself a right to, get a crack at Charlo. The redemption of beating my twin brother. There's a story there. But I think Benavidez should be first in line just because I think that's the better matchup. But we will see what happens. Also in boxing for the ladies, Katie Taylor, one of the greatest to ever do it, avenges her only loss that came a couple months ago against Chantel Cameron with a clinical performance at age 37. And Katie becomes undisputed yet again. I think the only woman besides the G-Woat, Clarissa Shields, to become undisputed twice. So, or at least in 2 different divisions. So yeah, shout out to Katie. Avenges her only loss. She's a legend. Irish boxing legend in general. And like I said, one of the greatest of all time. She gets it done. Gets the decision over Cameron and her redemption. Now let's talk about entertainment, which is literally just Invincible this week. Okay? It's literally just Invincible. There was nothing that happened. This was the break from music. Okay? This was the week. We had Thanksgiving. Nobody wants to hop in the studio this week. Alright? Understandable. So we're just going to talk about Invincible. Okay? It was the mid-season finale, I guess we have to call it, since it's not going to be back till January, which, again, sucks, but hey, is what it is. I'm thinking it's maybe so we don't have as much of a break in between seasons, so maybe they're, working on Season 3, so we'll get Season 3 around this time next year, while we get the rest of Season 2 early next year, so we got a little bit less of a break, since now Amazon knows, hey, yo, this is working, a lot of people are invested, this is one of the big shows we have. And I think maybe with Season 1, they didn't know that. So then it was like, oh, wow, this is a big hit. Now we got to hop in, so there's a little bit of a break. So, understandable if that's kind of the case, and I think that's what they're doing. But nonetheless, all right, episode 4, Invincible, Nolan and Mark versus the Viltrumites. That's basically what this was. Of course, we got a lot of great comic, excerpts and storylines introduced into this episode. Of course, Nolan and Mark reuniting. Mark feeling a type of way about that, as any person would in his situation. Nolan, of course, introduces him to the Thraxians and everything that's going on there. And, of course, the fact that Mark now has a brother, which has not been named. Spoiler alert, okay? Before I reveal the name, which you may or may not have been spoiled on anyway, it's not too big of a spoiler. But Oliver Grayson is here. Can't wait to see how they do Oliver in this show. But yeah, Oliver is here. He makes his debut. The Viltrumites, I think they did a really good job with that fight scene and just kind of showing the difference and how powerful the Viltrumites are. The pushing him down with one finger, just the blows they can take. Lorcan got in holding his intestines. Still big-booted Nolan in his back to break his back. That's crazy, bro. Viltrumites are on a different level. Also, Nolan and Debbie, those parallels of what they were going through. I think that was a really good story as well. Also, Nolan literally stared into a black hole and did not fall through it. Once again, Viltrumites are on a different level. And, of course, Craig made... I think this is Craig's debut. I think it's the first time we've seen Craig. Of course, he was actually in the fight in the comic, but I like his role kind of cleaning up because he will play a little bit of a bigger role as we go on as one of the main Viltrumites that you will know and see. So, Clancy Brown also voicing him. That was kind of cool. But yeah, Craig shows up at the end, tells Mark to fall in line. Of course, that sets up a very big storyline going forward. And of course, yeah. Now, with that said, ladies and gentlemen, you know it is time for the NFL. And before we talk about the Carolina Panthers and Frank Reich, we had Thursday football because it was Thanksgiving. And of course, that is the NFL's day. So let's talk about it, all right? The Packers and the Lions. It was remarkable to watch the Detroit Lions revert back to being the Detroit Lions in real time. It was honestly astonishing, okay? How quickly they fell back into their Detroit Lion tendencies. It was like they saw the Packers, and then Jordan Love started playing like Aaron Rodgers, and then they just had war flashbacks, and they never snapped out of it. They just never, ever snapped out of it. They get a garbage time touchdown to make this game look closer than it was, but it was not that close. Jordan Love with a masterclass. A masterclass. And somebody get that man a turkey leg. I don't know what was up with that. But yeah, a masterclass for J. Love on this day, on Thanksgiving. An incredible debut performance. 268 and 3 touchdowns. He was fantastic. Christian Watson, by the way, couldn't be stopped. 5 receptions, 94 yards, and a touchdown. They didn't even need a run game. Though they still had 109 yards, they spread that around a little bit. But yeah, Jordan Love. This was the Jordan Love game. For all intents and purposes, it was his game. Jonathan Owens had his best game. All right, we did not get to make fun of Jonathan Owens for simply just being Simone Biles' husband. He actually did something in this game. 12 tackles, a TFL, a pass deflection, and of course, that fumble recovery for a touchdown. So yeah, shout out to Owens. Had a very, 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 very solid game. Jared Goff, his stat line looks pretty. He did not play very good. This was probably the worst 332-yard, 2-touchdown game I have ever seen in my life. But he got it, I guess, nonetheless. ARSB had 9 receptions, 95 yards. But Goff also lost 3 fumbles. The Packers were giving him hell, and like I said, the Lions reverted back to their old tendencies, and it was horrific to watch if you were a Detroit fan. If you were Green Bay, it was bliss. Shout out to J. Love. Shout out to the how about them Cowboys? Still. It was a great Thanksgiving as I watched the Washington Commanders get the absolute piss beat out of them by my Dallas Cowboys, 45-10. This game was not close. That fourth quarter was a murder spree. Dak goes 331 yards and 4 touchdowns. That is my quarterback. And low-key, I feel like people are going to be like, yo, it's just because you're a Cowboys fan. But, I mean, if you look at the numbers and the way he's played outside of maybe, and this is not a great MVP race, I'm not saying he is the MVP, but we're 8-3. He's putting up number. Dak Prescott needs to maybe be in MVP talks. No bias, just I mean, look at the men lie, women lie, but numbers don't, right? Look at the numbers. That's all I'm saying. You know, I know we rag on Dak, but Dak is balling out. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Pollard had 79 yards, and he also got the back-to-back weeks with a Tony Pollard touchdown. It's, oh my, look what the Lord will do. Look what he will do. CD got in the box, as always. Brandon Cooks also as well. Kavion Turpin and Rico Dowd. So we just let everybody score. Honestly, we were just who wants to score? You're going to score this week. That's the type of game it was against Washington. We just completely destroyed them. Micah Parsons, 1.5 sacks. But, of course, it's our Defensive Player of the Year himself, Dayron Bland, who breaks the pick six record in the greatest fashion possible, breaking 3 tackles. And it was just glorious. All right, an iconic moment, an iconic call as well. And, yes, he breaks the pick six record. 5. We're in week 12. He's got 5. Defensive Player of the Year. That's all I'm saying, man. Defensive Player of the Year. Imagine if we had Diggs, bro. Imagine. Just imagine. I'm not saying we're winning the Super Bowl or anything, but, you know, let's give the Cowboys some flowers. You always rag on us because we're the Cowboys. Can we at least get some flowers for how we've played, all right? We've been balling, okay? Curtis Samuel had 9 receptions, 100 yards. He was pretty much the only person that showed up on that offense, but it didn't matter because they beat them. They got beat by 35, all right? How about them Cowboys? 49ers and Seahawks. Yeah, this wasn't a great game. All right, CMC, though, had a day. All right, he had a great day. Of course, his body was was all bruised, according to Olivia Copo's Instagram the day after. But nonetheless, CMC did CMC stuff, 114 yards and 2 touchdowns for the man who is very likely the best running back on the planet Earth. Brock Purdy didn't do too much. He did throw a pick, but, you know, forgivable. 6 sacks, though. All right, Nick Bosa, Javon Hargrave, 6 team sacks for the 49ers. Geno never once felt comfortable in that pocket, and you could tell throughout this game. He had it rough. He also threw an interception in this game. And, yeah, just a really tough game for the Seahawks, and the 49ers get the win 31-13. Dolphins-Jets. It was on Friday, too. All right, so we still had some pre-Sunday football. Wasn't anything special, all right? The only real notable thing about this game, by the way, was Javon Holland's 99-yard on a Hail Mary, by the way, at the end of the half. Holland takes the pick six, 99 yards, which was pretty cool. That was pretty much the only notable thing that happened, to be completely honest with you, in this game. It was pretty much the usual, except for Tua kind of having a rough game, by the way. Very low-key, quietly having a rough game. For them winning 34-13, had a very rough game. Due to interceptions, Mozart did his thing. Cheetah did his thing. Ronald did his thing. Tim Boyle started at quarterback for the Jets, and that went about as what did you expect. And the Dolphins get a win. No real surprises. The Jets are in purgatory. The Bengals, yeah, the season's over. We said it last week, but yeah, it's really over. When you can't beat this Steelers team, who just continue to find ways to win, when you can't beat them at home, it's done. All right, 16-10. Not great football in this game. Not a pretty game. It was the battle of mid, but the Steelers continue to find ways to win, and they get the win 16-10. The Jaguars and the Texans went at it. All right, they went at it. Of course, this is headlined by the quarterback matchup for the AFC South of the future, which, of course, is C.J. Stroud and one Trevor Lawrence. 2 quarterbacks, you know, that have been very highly regarded since coming out of college. Of course, Lawrence definitely did not have the rookie year that C.J. Stroud is having, but he does get the win here. Despite Stroud and Houston's best, attempt at a comeback, it does fall short, and the Jaguars prove to be the better team, for now at least. Trevor goes 364, 1 touchdown, 1 pick through the air. Etienne has had a series of rough games. I wouldn't know. A lot of mid-games for Etienne recently. I don't know if they can't get him going or whatever it was, or the game plan is just not working for him. I would know because I have him on my fantasy team, and it's not been fun. All right? Hasn't been very fun lately. Calvin Ridley continues to impress over the past couple weeks. Seems like that connection is really starting to settle in, which is good for the Jaguars as they approach the playoffs. They're 8-3, by the way. 5 receptions, 89 yards, and a touchdown for Calvin Ridley. Josh Allen continues to be great. 5 tackles, 2.5 sacks. He had 4 QB hits in this game, which is absolutely ludicrous. We're going to talk about ludicrous when we talk about Atlanta. Houston Texans, like I said. Stroud played a great game. Already had 304 yards passing, 47 yards rushing, and 3 touchdowns total. Another great game from Stroud. He's starting to get MVP shouts, and with the way the MVP race is looking, I honestly can't really argue it too much, to be honest. Him at least being in the conversation, because he's played great. All right, he has played great this season. Nico Collins was the wide receiver for the week. Seven receptions, 104, and a touchdown. Tank Dell continues to have a great rookie season. 5 receptions, 50 yards, and a touchdown. And yeah, Texans, of course, there's certain things, you might want to have done better. You might think, man, if we'd done this, we'd have got this stop, we'd have made this play, we'd have won. But you were not supposed to even be in this conversation with Jacksonville right now. This is supposed to be their time. And you just played them to a 3-point game at home. You'll take it. All right, you'll take it. This is going to be a great matchup, I think, as time goes on. If these two teams can keep their cores together, I think this is going to be one of, potentially one of the premier divisional matchups, I think, going forward with, the two great young quarterbacks that we have in T-Law and CJ as those franchise cornerstones. I think it's going to be a very interesting matchup going forward. So, yeah, Jaguars, though, for now, get the best of the Texans. Not much to talk about. Tampa Bay. Not much to talk about usually. It's kind of embarrassing. All right, the Colts are 6-5, by the way. 6-5. No AR, and we really don't know how good this Colts team. Like, we all just kind of suspected, they're going to be one of the worst teams. But here they are, over 500. Because that's just kind of the way season's going, honestly, for some of these teams. Minshew didn't have this great game. JT had a very, very good game. He had 91 yards, 2 touchdowns. Michael Pittman Jr. had 10 receptions, 107. It was a very therapeutic game, I'd say, for the Colts. That's the best way I can put it, right? Like, those stars that had been kind of waiting in the wings a little bit finally had those breakout games, and I think that's a really big thing for the Colts going forward. Maybe they can use this as some momentum and, kind of build something. Baker didn't play a great game. Rashad White, after tearing Talona Hafunga's ACL with that juke last week, followed it up with a 100-yard performance. Mike Evans continues to be the model of consistency at the wide receiver position with another 2-touchdown game. But in the end, it was the Colts. They get the win over the Bucks, 27-20. The Falcons beat the Saints because the Saints can't have anything good happen right now while they try to feign a, rebuild. And the Falcons continue to fall upwards because, like I said, that's just one of the stories of the year. They trade field goals at the end of this game, but like I said, the Saints do not really have an offense. They have this mirage of an offense with, Carr throwing. I mean, by the way, what in the hell was he thinking on that interception? Like that was the most telegraphed pick six I've ever seen. That was easy pickings for Jesse Bates. In that first quarter, stared the receiver down. All right, textbook from Bates. He takes that all the way. And, that ends up being one of the things that decides the game ultimately. But, yeah, Carr just is mid. The Saints are mid. The Falcons fall upwards. Ritter was horrible, but they find ways to win despite playing a near terroristic levels of offense. Not quite Iowa yet, but, not too far off. Shout out to Arthur Smith. Falcons get the win. The Giants and the Patriots played the worst game of the week, 10-7, to nobody's surprise. I'm going to be completely honest with you. If you bet on this game, much less the fact that it finished 10-7, if you bet on this game, you are a degenerate. You need help. Go seek a therapist. Because I know there's some of you that bet on this game. Not saying I wasn't one of them, but I'm just saying you need help, okay? This was a horrible game, and we pretty much all saw it coming. Mac Jones still ain't him. 12 for 21, 89 yards, and not one, but 2 interceptions before he, as usual, gets benched for Bailey Zapp, who can't finish off the final drive, and they lose anyway. He also threw a pick. Caleb Williams, you are a New England Patriot, all right? At this point, Caleb Williams, this feels very much so like when the Spurs got Wemby. Of course, Belichick, gets the premier prospect in the draft, right? Of course the Patriots get Caleb Williams, all right? Of course that's going to happen. And that just kind of seems inevitable at this point. Ramondre Stevenson is pretty much the only thing worth watching on this Patriots team, even though the defense honestly had a good performance. But then again, they're facing Tommy DeVito. And if you can't do anything against Tommy DeVito, then you need help. You need help. And like I said, if you bet on this game, you also need help. The Titans and the Panthers, another near terroristic levels of football from 2 horrific quarterbacks, which they're young and they're rookies. So maybe not horrific, but far from a finished product. Bryce, not so much as, listen, I don't know what pipe dreams Jonathan Mingo sold y'all, but I never saw it, and boy oh boy, he's not A.J. Brown, and that drop was horrific. And y'all are getting Bryce killed out there. Okay, Bryce is getting, has half a second to throw the ball before he's getting pressured. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. King Grinder. It is not safe for him. Not at all. Bryce has another rough game. Even though he didn't, he turned the ball over once. He had the fumble. But besides that, just got beat up. And the Panthers are 1-10, and they don't have their pick, as I say every week. It's just a disaster. An absolute disaster. And they just fired Frank Reich, which we'll see if that fixes anything. But I'm not too sold on that. Rams get the win 37-14 over the Cardinals. Matthew Stafford is back. Slowly but surely. 229, 4 touchdowns in this game. Tutu Atwell led everybody in receiving, but he wasn't the guy. No, Kyren Williams. Kyren Williams. Have a day. Over 200 yards total, 143 yards rushing. No touchdowns, because all of his touchdowns came receiving. 6 receptions, 61 yards, and 2 touchdowns. If you had him in fantasy football, especially PPR, what a day that you had. Royce Freeman as well in the run game had 77 yards and a touchdown. They ran for 228 yards on this Arizona Cardinals team, who looked like a 2-10 team. All right, even with Kyler back, the Cardinals still suck. Don't get it messed up. Tyler Higbee also got 2 touchdowns in this game. Kobe Turner got 2 sacks. This was a game of twos because they just about doubled the score. Okay, Kyler Murray 256 and a touchdown. Not a bad game necessarily, but listen, there's levels. There are so blatantly, clearly levels between these two teams, and the Cardinals are one of the worst teams in the league. And the Rams are not one of the best teams in the league, but are certainly better than the Cardinals. The Broncos and the Browns. DTR was okay, but that's not going to win you games. And okay at best, to be completely honest. Really, you could say he had a bad game, but I'm gonna give him the rookie pass of it was okay. All right. Let Russ cook continues for another week, 134 and a touchdown. I think Sierra's pregnant. Did that get announced today? And I just haven't checked Twitter because I saw her mention something on First Take about her. She's knocked up again. So, or actually, yeah, she's been knocked up. I don't know what it is. When she's pregnant, Russ plays better. I don't know if it's the dad instincts or strength kicks in for Russ, but that's when he starts cooking, and he has been cooking ever since the announcement, I guess. Javonte Williams had 65 yards, which that happened all before he got injured. So wishing the best for him. But yeah, just another week of let Russ cook, and another week of that Broncos defense is real, man. We don't really talk about them a lot. Or maybe as much as we should, but Nick Bonito, PS2, they got some dogs. All right, Broncos got some dogs on that defense, and they showed up big time. Of course, you're playing DTR, you better perform, and they did. And yeah, DTR also got knocked out of this game, so they also faced PJ Walker, which is even better if you're a defense, honestly. The Raiders went up 14-0 in this game, and then crap the bed. All right, the moment got too big. Piss was running down their leg to quote Coach 30, and yeah, it just all fell apart, and the Chiefs said, okay, you've had your fun. Time for us to win this game, and they did just that. Mahomes goes 290 and 2 touchdowns. Mancheo has 2 touchdowns. Rashee Rice actually looks like an NFL receiver. 8 receptions, 107 and a touchdown. So yes, let's give Rashee Rice round of applause. Kansas City Chiefs have 1 receiver, 1 that actually showed up this week. I'm so proud. All right, that's not named Travis Kelce. I'm so very proud. It was honestly impressive. Maybe the rookie will turn into something after all. AOC, and not the one that's in Congress, was the one that was starting for Vegas this week. Aiden O'Connell of Purdue fame. He was solid, especially early in the game. But after that, the Chiefs adjusted, I think, very, very well, made some great adjustments, and caused a lot of issues for the rookie quarterback. 248 a touchdown. Josh Jacobs had 110 and a touchdown on the ground. But like I said, even though Max gets another sack, adds to his depoy, shouts, Chiefs just took over at a certain point and just said, yeah, we're not going out like that, and it showed. The Eagles and the Bills. Sunday Night Football. I believe this was Sunday Night Football, right? Or was, no, the Ravens and the Chargers were Sunday night. This was the 4 o'clock, yeah. It just went over because of overtime. What a game. All right, honestly, game of the week in the NFL this week, besides my own satisfaction of watching the, Commanders get crapped on by the Cowboys, was this game. All right, Josh Allen is now 0-6 though in overtime. Jalen Hurts is not the MVP, but we learned a lot from this game, okay? And that is the Eagles are beatable, but they still have not been beaten except for once. 10-1. 10-1 for Philly. I got to give a shout. They were clutch, all right? Hurts wasn't perfect, but he was clutch. He did have 5 touchdowns in this game. 200 yards. Listen, he has not been great through the air, but it's hard to argue with the hat trick. It's very, very hard. 200 yards. He did go 18 for 31, so the touchdowns make it look a little bit better. But you know what? It was winning time, and your quarterback showed up. You'll take it all day. Hurts has 2 touchdowns in this game. I think that gave him the record for most rushing touchdowns in like 60-something games or whatever it was. So, shout out to Hurts, and of course, shout out to whoever created the tush push for getting that record. Devonta Smith was him. 7 receptions, 106 and a touchdown. A.J. Brown got in the box. Zacchaeus got in the box. That defense was not great. And they've been kind of a little bit of a weak point for the Eagles all year. We haven't really said, yo, the Eagles defense really shut it down this week and held it down. We haven't said that too much, I feel. And it's going to be very interesting as we get to the playoffs and they get in some of these like really big games. Are they going to be able to make those plays when they have to happen? Can they do that? Josh Allen played a very good game. All right, he played a very good game. He's not going to he's always going to have a pick. All right, it's a given. It's Josh Allen. He's going to throw an interception. But when he plays and does everything else he did in this game, you can almost forgive it. Over 400 yards total in this game and 4 touchdowns, 81 yards rushing on 9 carries and 2 touchdowns, and 339 and 2 touchdowns through the air. Gabe Davis, 6 receptions, 105 and a touchdown, but you got to think back to that over. Too long this week. Not too long. I should be able to fit it in with the time I have left in this kind of camera segment I got going on. F1. We had the last race of the F1 season, the Dubai Grand Prix. You know who won this race for the That's fine, but I just wanted it to be a little bit more competitive than him just, it being a foregone conclusion that, hey, Max is going to murk the competition every single week. So, yeah. Still, I'm going to miss F1. I've become very attached. Very, very attached. And, yeah, it was another great season. But Max runs Dubai, and he still runs F1. NBA, of course, Josh Giddey. I won't say too much, but, we'll see what happens. But a 17-year-old, when you can pretty much have any white girl you want in the state of Oklahoma, is an interesting choice. All right, it's an interesting choice. Chet has been hooping, though. All right, Chet has been hooping. Wemby actually had a very good game, but Chet definitely has taken command of that Rookie of the Year competition. Also, I got to give a shout to De'Aaron Fox. He's been hooping. Not a lot of people talking about that. Sabonis gets a lot of shine, kind of surprisingly, on that Kings team. But De'Aaron Fox has been hooping. Women's college basketball. Potentially over Caitlyn because of how inefficient Caitlyn's been so far in the season. I wouldn't be surprised if what is now bringing offensively and what she already brings defensively, if she steals that #1 overall pick. But we will see. But with that said, ladies and gentlemen, that is it. That is it for episode 173 of the A15 Exchange. But without further ado, Ocho signing off.